We're on Daf Pei Gimel Amid Beis, towards the top of the Amud, and we're up to the sugya of Bulmus, very, very famous sugya. Tana Rabbana. Let's just make sure we're all on the right page and in the right place. On Daf Pei Gimel Amid Beis, we're counting down approximately a little bit more than 15 lines from the top. And the first word in the line is bi'atzitz. Tana Rabbana. Misha chazo bulmus. Bulmus is a kind of disease, a very dangerous disease that is classically in modern times we talk about undernourishment. You have tragically countries on the face of the earth. I don't know if it's politically correct to mention Africa, I don't know, but there are other countries that aren't in Africa with tremendous undernourishment. And you will see pictures of children even, that have this disease called bulmus. And one of the most profound symptoms of bulmus is in the eyes. It makes you, Rahman al-Islam, impaired vision. It's almost impossible for you to see. The ball game is not lost. It's not all, this is not Surfside where pretty much it's gone. But here you could salvage and save someone who has bulmus by feeding them. And if it's Yom Kippur, we will feed them on Yom Kippur because Pikuach Nefesh overrides Yom Kippur. Not only that, Pikuach Nefesh even overrides Shabbos. Yom Kippur is an Issa Kares, Shabbos is an Issa Skila, it's more Chamur. But for the sake of saving lives, and even a Safed, as we discussed yesterday, we don't know who's under the debris, if there's anyone there. And if there is someone there, can we still save him? We will violate the Shabbos for a Safek Nefashos. And certainly in the case of Bulmus, we will do so. Now I ask the question, it's almost a medical question. At what point do I say, Genug, I fed the Bulmus case enough, and now he's no longer in danger? And as we said before, the symptom is the loss of eyesight. If I fed him and, color comes back to his face, and he opens his eyes, and we can test his eyesight, and he passes the test, it means he's Yotza Mechlal Sakon. He's no longer in danger. The Brisa says, why is it that from a medical perspective, in the choice of food, which kinds of food should we feed this bulmus in this very emergency case? We don't have time to lose. It's going to be sweet foods or dvash, which of course is sweet. And the answer is, medically, again, I wish Mitch was here, he was here last year, that the eyes are aided by sweet foods. And in the language of the Brisa, shedvash v'chol bine mesika me'irin mi'ar enov shel adam. They will help restore his eyesight. Now, I thought that the eyesight and the loss of sight is a symptom. The Gemara says, again, it seems to be a clinical premise, that loss of sight is not, in the case of bulmus, is not a symptom. It's a cause. The loss of sight is what's putting him into danger. It's not that because he has a disease called bulmus, that expresses itself in the loss of sight. The loss of sight itself, if we can only ameliorate, if we can therapeutically help his sight and replace his sight, then that will save him from bulmus. And in order to achieve that goal, immediately feed him mine mesika, sweet things, especially honey. And afal pishen raya l'dover, you might ask me for some scientific evidence, and in the absence of scientific evidence, at least quote a verse from the Tanakh I'm going to derive chachma of teva, of nature and science and medicine from the Torah. I can't quote to you any pasuk. Any pasuk that I quote to you, you will reject my proof. But I can give you a zecher l'tov. I will show you a verse which will help you at least retain this knowledge. Now, in order to appreciate the background of the pasuk that the Gemara, the Brisa is quoting, let me tell you a little bit of a story about Shaul HaMelech. Shaul HaMelech went out to battle against the Plishtim. And this was meant to be a fierce combat, a very, very challenging military campaign. And Shmuel wanted to make sure that the people, the Jewish soldiers, were not dilly-dally and start taking from the booty of Plishtim before the last battle was won. This was going to be a long, drawn-out, extended battle. And the soldiers might be tempted to start eating the food that they find in the camps of the Plishtim in the early stages of the war. So Shaul uses the following tool to keep his soldiers in line. And that's called a shvuah, an oath. Now, it's not clear to me why Shaul is endowed with the authority and the power to impose an oath upon the people. And I'm not sure if it operates midin shvuah or midin malchus. Let's take the latter approach. As a melech, when the melech imposes an oath, in this case on the people going out to war, the soldiers should not indulge in any achila from the Plishtim until we defeat the last battle against the Plishtim. No distractions. Then when the Melech gives a command that is supported and strengthened by a shvuah, I'm not sure if the shvuah is valid and binding within the context and the limitations of Hilchot Shvuah. I'm not sure that I can take a shvuah and impose it upon you, although we did have such a case at the beginning of this parak with regard to Shvuas HaEdus, where the plaintiff could be mashbia and impose the shvuah on two people that he believes have testimony to be made on his behalf. So Shaul HaMelech is mashbia es ha'am. Lo tritom klum. Don't take even a taste of food. Ad sof milchemes haplishtim. Till we finally can declare victory and we fought the last battle. We need you as soldiers on board, totally focused, single-minded on the battle without any distractions. So you pass through a grove of pineapples, of a vineyard of grapes, and you're tempted as a soldier to take a little bit of a break. Lova, why can't I grab a couple of grapes on my way? Lo plum. Shaul says, I'm not going to, once I give you a finger, you'll take the hand. Once you start indulging in a single grape, it'll lead you to want to take more and more and more until the point you get distracted from the milcham, from the battle. Now, what happened in the story? There's a little bit of a negative side to the story. Shaul's own son Yonatan was not aware of the shvuah. He just wasn't around when the shvuah was given. It wasn't posted on Facebook. And Yonatan went ahead during the battle against the Plishtim, and he took his staff, his mata, and he dipped it into dvash. Right? There was dvash in a, let's say, a beehive, and he penetrates his staff into the beehive. Tastes the honey, and he declares, Re'una ki oru enai. My eyes have been opened. Ki ta'amti ma'at dvash zeh. Again, this is going to get him into trouble, but my eyes are feeling great. Now, what does Yonatan prove to me? One thing is for sure, there's a relationship between the honey and that you eat and the eyes and the beneficial impact of honey on the eyes. But what I'm not sure about is whether or not honey, in terms of relationship to the eyes, can operate and be effective in an adverse situation, meaning, is it therapeutic within the normal context of day-to-day living? I want to do whatever will improve my eyesight, that's for sure. But can it be therapeutic in a case of someone who's suffering from a very severe eye disease? It could very well be that honey will not register, it will not be effective at all for an individual who is suffering a very extreme ailment of his eyes. Honey may be beneficial for a normal pair of eyes. Some say carrots. I mean, there are a whole bunch of different things that might improve your eyesight. The best way of improving your eyesight is by not reading small text without enough light. I know someone who works as an optometrist in Baltimore. He made Aliyah recently. And I once went to see him, and we were talking about nearsightedness and farsightedness. And he told me that in the city of Baltimore, there were two types of patients. There were the Afro-Americans, and there were the religious Jews, the yeshiva boys. And it was always the same rule. The Afro-Americans suffer from farsightedness, and the yeshiva students all suffer from nearsightedness. So I asked him why. He says, because there's one muscle of the body, only one, where if you push it too hard, you get the opposite effect. And that's the eye muscle. The eye muscles, if you push it too hard, with the rest of your body, the more you push it, the more exercise you do, the better. And it strengthens the muscle. But there's one muscle that weakens when you push it too hard. And that's what yeshiva bachrim do. They push it too hard by reading small text with not enough light. And that's why all yeshiva bachrim suffer from nearsightedness. Now you don't know who wears glasses anymore because of all the surgeries and so forth. But in the old days, it was very rare to meet a yeshiva student who didn't have glasses. And it was always to correct nearsighted. This all might be simple to you, but for me, it was an eye-opener, pardon the pun. In fact, on the very day that I heard this, I went back to the Beis Medrash, and my favorite Rebbe in the yeshiva at that time, I'm not going to mention his name, but he was famous for taking a page, one page, and he could shrink, I don't know how many, 20 different sources, and photocopy them on one page. And I said to him, Rabbi, I don't think you're doing a service for the students because you're giving them very small print. I'm willing to pay extra money for extra paper so that you don't have to reduce the size of the print of the sources. So the Gemara asks, why isn't this a clear-cut raya? Yonasan says explicitly that I ate honey and my eyes are feeling great. So Gemara answers the awesome labulmis achsim. We're talking about using honey as an effective therapeutic application to someone who's in a state of bulmus. He's got an eye disease that's very severe. I'm not sure that honey will make any dent. It could help you if you have normal eyes, normal vision. But it's a zeichel. Omar Abaye lo shanu ela li achar achila aval kodem achila migrar gorir. It's very nice that mine mesika, sweets, and honey are therapeutic. But in the case of bulmus, we got to worry about two things. We have to worry about his hunger pains, which is really the cause of his disease, and we have to worry about his eyesight. By giving him mine mesika, you are stimulating his appetite. He will not be satisfied with that achila. And Abai is warning us that with regard to bulmus, the first thing that's urgent that you have to attend to is the nourishment, to make sure he gets the food that he has to eat. So li'achar achilu, you've already given him the food that he needs to supply nourishment. Now you want to focus on his eyes and feed him mini mesika. That's wonderful. But kodem achila, migra gorit. On the contrary, you're going to get the opposite effect. Instead of helping him by nourishing his body, you give him mini mesika, and mini mesika make a person hungry. They induce appetite. And I'll prove it to you from a different pasuk in Shmuel. And this is already way past the battle of Shaul with Plishtim. We're now fast forwarding to the battle of David HaMelech against the Amalekim. Vayimtzu ish mitri basodeh. They found at one point in the battle an Egyptian out there in the fields. Vayiklos el David, vayitnu lo lechem, vayochal vayashku mayim, vayitnu lo pelach dvela ushnei tzimukim, vayochal vatoshav rucho elov, ki lo ochal lechem lo shosa mayim, shlosha yomim ushlosha levos. So the Torah testifies, the Tanakh testifies that this person who had not eaten or drunk for 3 days, that's obviously very, very dangerous. The first thing they did on the agenda, they gave him food. They gave him lechem. They gave him mayim. And then, once his nourishment was supplied and he was somewhat satiated, then they gave him dried figs and dried grapes, which are raisins in our language, and he ate them. And the pasuk says, "Vatoshav rucho elam." Omar Rav Nachman Omer Shmuel Mishachazo Bulmos Machilin also Alya Bidvash. Very strange combination. Alya is the fatty part of an animal, and we're going to dip that into honey. And that's going to be therapy for bulls. Rav Huna Breder, Rav Yeshua, Omer Soles, Af Soles Nikia B'Dvash, a mixture of wheat flour together with honey is very, very beneficial, says Rav Yehuda, for bulls. Rav Huna. Rav Papa Amar, afilu kimchi desari bidvashi. You don't have to use wheat flour and mix it with honey. Even barley flour is good enough. Amar Rabbi Yochanan pama'achas achazani bulbus. Wow. Rabbi Yochanan testifies about himself that he had contracted a state of bulbus. Ratzti lemizracha shel te'ena. I was able somehow to energize myself enough to go over to the fig tree, which was on the eastern side. And I was able to eat the peros And again, figs are very sweet. Now, when we say he went to the eastern side, it says Mizracha Shel Ta'ena, it means that the figs on a tree do not mature all of them at a uniform rate. And the sweetness inside the fig will be commensurate, or will be a function of which side of the tree the fig was growing. The Mizrach side faces the sun, and in the early hours of the day up until noon, the sun beats down very strongly, and it sweetens these fruits that are growing on the eastern side because of the strong rays of the sun. V'kiyamti be'atzmi, as a result of the fact that Rabbi Yochanan ate the sweetest of the dates, hachachma techaya bailim, it gave me my life back. It rejuvenated me. I was able to save myself through this intelligent chachma that I knew from the brisa that we're about to learn, that one should eat figs when he's in a state of boldness. The Tani Rav Yosef, harotza litom tam te'ena. If you want to look for the best figs, the superior figs on the fig tree, yifne limizracha, he should turn towards the eastern side of the tree, of the fig tree, that faces the sun during the morning hours. Shenemar, when Yaakov bestows a blessing on Yosef, it says, Umi meged tfuas shomesh. Unfortunately, I didn't bring a chumash. Steve, can you do me a favor? That's probably volume 1. Oh, great. Oh, I was pointing to Bracious over there. See if you can find a puzzle at the end of Sefer Bracious. I'm going to look here in the Mesorah Hashaz. Number Dal. Can you find the blessing that Yaakov bestows upon Yosef? Umi meged tfuas shemesh. Now, Yaakov Avinu is prophesizing about which territory eventually, after the battle of Yoshua to conquer the land, which territory in the land of Israel would be allocated for the descendants of Yosef. And it says that the blessing to that land, that real estate, that's dedicated, that is singled out for Yosef, is going to be blessed with Mimeged Tfuah Shemesh, that it will be supported, and in this case, sweetened by the sun. So we see clearly from this passage that it's the Shemesh that sweetens the fruits. And therefore, if you have a fig tree, those figs that are on the eastern side are very, very sweet. We have it? No? So do me a favor, maybe we're talking about Vizos HaBracha, talking about Moshe's blessing. Maybe, I don't know. See if you can find Moshe's blessing to Yosef. Maybe Perek Lamed Gimel. Unfortunately, I don't see. Oh, wait a minute. Or maybe I found it now. Here I have the Torah or Dvarim Lamed Gimel. Pasuk Yudam, correct? Thank you so much. So it's my fault. I misled you. He says, "Uli Yosef Amam v'oreches Hashem artso mi-meged shamayim mital umi-meged tvua shomesh." And in the English translation, with the bounty of the sun's crops. So when he says the sun's crops, he means that which grows because it has a direct, it's directly impacted by the rays of the sun. Okay, I see it's getting late. I'll just, if you can stay for another 5 minutes, fine. If not, I just wanted to finish this sugya. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Avika Azli Biorcha, they were walking on the road. Achze Bulmus Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda apparently hadn't eaten, and he got into a state of bulmus. Kapche leroa achle lerifta. Rabbi Yehuda forced a roa to give him bread. He actually compelled him. Maybe he grabbed the bread. I don't know exactly how he did this. Amalei Rav Yossi. Rav Yossi responds, Ki pachta es haroa. The roa, this shepherd from whom you stole his bread, has now taken a financial loss. He masa. So as soon as they got to the city, achse bulmus Rav Yossi. By that time, Rav Yossi, who refused to steal the bread of the roa, he now gets into a state of bulmus. Ahadru belugge vitzai. The people of the city surrounded Rabbi Yossi to try to save him with belugge. Those are jugs full of honey and other sweets. Vitzai, and those are karos, which means plates that are full with food. And they were hoping that the eyesight of Rabbi Yossi would return, would be restored. Amalei Rabbi Yehuda, ani kipachti es haroa, v'ata kipachta sa'ir kula. The entire city came out to feed you, and they left you with all this food. So you're causing a loss to the people of the city. Again, you wonder why Rabbi Yehuda would have made such an analogy, because in the case of the roa, Rabbi Yehuda had forced the roa and taken his bread to eat it. But here it's the people on their own volition, they came forward to save the life of Rabbi Yossi. It wasn't like anyone confiscated their food. He says in the footnote, "V'afal gav de Rabbi Yehuda notal me'aroa b'koach eslach." Our question. Rabbi Yossi sover chaklal she'ena kodesh baruch hu mevi takol tzadikim takef af b'dvarim she'en b'em el mishum mina chasidus. We have a cloud that a Kodesh Baruch will never bring about any sort of bad takol through tzaddikim. And Rabbi Yossi thought that should apply even in the case of minhag chasidus, meaning even if you would have gone beyond the letter of the law, and maybe you had rights technically to grab onto the bread of the shepherd, but had you gone beyond the letter of the law, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu would not bring about a takol. So even if you'll argue that, even if Rabbi Yehuda would argue that he had rights to take away the bread to save his own life, but nevertheless, Rabbi Yossi can't fathom this because it's a takola that comes about through a tzaddik. And even in a midas chasidus, when you're allowed to do it, if it's a takola and somebody loses because of it, then that contradicts the principle that we have advocated in front of this principle that in a Kodesh Baruch Hu may be takola tzaddikim. Okay, so I see that we're running out of time. Let's make a note of where we got up to here. On Daf Pei Gimel Amid Beis, we're up to Visu, which is already past the halfway mark of this So we nether will try to finish this up tomorrow. Okay then? Thank you and have a great day.